Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Late Night Table Talk. I'm Eric, and as always, inexorably, I suppose, I'm your host. So, it's almost midnight in Pittsburgh, so we should probably get started. Joining me tonight is going to be Monique, the Game Freak Geek Girl. But before we catch up with her, as always, there are a few things I'd love to talk to y'all about. The first thing is, as usual, thanks again for watching. I really appreciate you sticking with the show. I'm just, plugging away, putting out videos, one a month, kind of the agreed upon pace. But we'll see how things change once this whole lockdown thing sort of trails off. I'm actually fully vaccinated at this point, so that's exciting. If you can get vaccinated, do so. So thanks again for watching, and hopefully you're enjoying the show. I don't really have a formal topic for tonight's monologue, since I rarely ever have formal topics. I'm kind of just doing my own thing. And I also mostly rambled about getting vaccinated earlier, so that was my, big thing. So, I can kind of give you a rundown on what I've been playing, what I'm looking forward to, and etc. So the first big thing, let me see if I can angle this right. Yeah, if I pop a little bit out of shot, the new Millennium Blades expansion arrived. Very excited about that. That means that now, there are just, hold on, I'm getting it. So many cards. Just a preposterous amount of cards. The dream. Really just, ugh. Well, hopefully that wasn't a mess. But what can you do? The dream. So, yeah, I tend not to back as many Kickstarters as I used to, just because this whole situation is happening. So, there have been some good ones that I've been really excited about, and some ones that friends have been doing. So, Rivet Head's just finished up. I know Flat Out is bringing another game to Kickstarter in the near future, and I'm even looking at a few. I just played Paperback Adventures from Tim Fowers, I guess 2 days ago. It's sort of a Slay the Spire. Well, actually, rather, it's a paperback take on Slay the Spire, not the other way around, which was super fun. So there's a lot of exciting stuff coming down the Kickstarter train. The one I'm really looking forward to is probably Railroad Ink Challenge, but my copy seems to have been lost to the eternal sands of Barstow, California FedEx facilities. So we'll see if that arrives at any point. It's been about a week now since it arrived there, so I think it might just be gone. Hopefully it's not. But beyond the Kickstarter titles, I've mostly been playing a lot of puzzle games, so mystery games, exit games, that sort of stuff. I'm not sure if you can... Yeah, it's kind of in frame here. If you look right... a little bit to my... Right there, yeah. So if you look right up there, 2 of the new exit games have jigsaw puzzles in them. Been super excited about that. I think that there's some nice competition in the puzzle game space right now between, the Sherlock Files, Detective, Dexcape, Unlock, now I'm trying to name them all, Chronicles of Crime, some other ones in the Exit series. They're all kind of pushing each other up a little bit, and so they're collectively stepping up their game. For instance, Chronicles of Crime 1900, I was just playing that. It added puzzle cards, so there are actual, legitimate puzzles that you have to work out in order to solve the crime. I frankly just really like the puzzle game space. It's a nice cooperative zone. A lot of them are challenging, but not exhaustingly so, although I will say, I did play the Emerald Flame a while back. Very hard. Very fun, but very hard. But I've just been very pleased with that genre as it's been kind of developing, especially because I haven't really been able to attend an escape room in a while, and I've really wanted to, and so having the puzzle games available makes it kind of... It's not the same, but it's close, and that's kind of what I care about. Beyond that, what else have I been up to, game-wise? I guess I finally got a number of games played from some of my partners from outside the US, so I tried out Showdown Tactics, Mine Deeper, from Korea Board Games, and Monster Dentist. Those were all fun. I liked those. And then I just got Gone Fishing from Happy Baobab played. It's been nice to be able to play more games with my housemates directly, so I can actually play some of the family weight dexterity games. And the Oink Kickstarter just arrived on the Kickstarter topic, so that's been fun. Ninja Catfoot is sort of a you have to strap your cell phone to your wrist, sort of, like this sort of looking thing, and then you have to try and slowly grab tiles as you're trying not to shake too much, otherwise you'll set off the alarm. Very fun. Dokojong, deduction game about stealing other people's dogs, so that'll definitely be a big one for a lot of you. Yeah, dog people. But yeah, no, it's been really nice to get a lot more games played. It's helping keep the review cycle up. Other than that, yeah, I've really just been, I guess video gaming has been happening. So I picked back up a few games that I've been meaning to do. I know everyone is playing Dwarf Romantic these days, so I picked that up. Quite fun. Would recommend it. Just picked up Nier Replicant, because I would like to feel sad. Spiritfarer just updated, so I'm going to feel sad. Just so many sad video games. And then new Pokemon Snap is coming soon, and I'm very excited about that, as you might guess from being a photography type person. But yeah, really, the big update here is things are good. Games are getting played, reviews are getting written. There should be more to look forward to in the near future, but that's just me. I'd love to know what y'all have been playing, what y'all are up to, so if you want to leave your favorite game you've played in the last month or so in the comments, I'd love to know what you're checking out, love to know what I should keep an eye out for as well. Yeah, so that's been, yeah, it's all been pretty good. Looking forward to maybe before the end of the year actually hitting up a convention, but that's still kind of up in the air, so we'll see. So let's bring on our guest, Monique. Monique is, by her own admission, a Game Freak Geek Girl, and she's been crushing it as a game streamer for some time now between both the board game and video game spaces. She's also a blast to hang out with, and I just want to make sure that I enter that into the record, so now that I've said it, it's formalized and it's kind of in this for good. And as I'm gradually realizing with these introductions, I should pretty much just get to the interview portion as quickly as possible, so I'm going to do that. To that end, please join me in welcoming Monique to Late Night Table Talk. Hey Monique, thanks so much for joining me. How's it going?
Good, how are you doing?
Can't complain. It's, I guess I was going to say it's Friday, but it's not.
It's Friday.
Exactly. I was talking to a friend about like the idea of pandemic gothic, where I was like, yeah, you wish your coworker you tell your coworker to have a good weekend. It's Monday. It's always been Monday. They haven't had a weekend, and I'm like, yeah, it's roughly how I feel. Like, I've been getting a lot of shade from my coworkers because we have a weekly meeting on Thursdays, and at the end of the meeting, I'm always like, oh, well, have a good weekend, everybody, and they're like, it's not the weekend, it's Thursday, and I was like, I'm not seeing any of you on Friday, so I'm trying to be nice.
Fair.
You jerks.
How rude. I mean, it's
right?
it's like part like just let me be optimistic. Let me have this.
Right? That's exactly what I'm at.
You are one signal that I am closer to my weekend by saying goodbye to you.
Right, exactly. Like every time and this meeting ends, I am one bit closer to my weekend and consequently to new Pokemon Snap.
Yes. I mean,
that's what I'm zeroed in on.
Absolutely. You have something to look forward to, so maybe that is the big difference.
That's the dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just slowly counting down. Yeah, I was tracking, basically, I was using TV shows or video game releases to track time passing. It's been helpful.
That's fair. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's totally fair.
Yeah, the problem is now Loki doesn't come out until like June, I guess, and so I'm suddenly like, oh, TV. What's coming out? Rutherford Falls? Is that the thing I'm watching next? I don't know.
I've been watching Star Trek. That's always just gonna be good. I've been going through like the Next Generation, like I've started over. Mm-hmm. And every time like there's a little too much Pulaski in an episode, I just switch to DS9 for a while and then go back when I know that she's gonna be gone for a while.
I don't know anything about TNG beyond whenever I pull up the Ambo Jitsu clip with Riker and his dad, it really upsets my housemate.
Oh, okay. I just watched that episode the other day.
Oh yeah, so occasionally what we'll do is she and I will be sitting and watching some YouTube video, and she's like, "Oh, I don't got anything else to watch. You want to put something?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I know what we can watch." And I'll just cue up that clip.
Are they like really upset, or they're just like, no.
They're just like, why? I think it's because they were watching the promo for Lower Decks, and like Lower Decks fundamentally is a show like laser targeted for my housemate. Like it exists because my housemate was a good person, and it manifested itself into the ether to reward her for her like virtue. It's just deep cut Star Trek jokes.
That's fantastic. Yeah, no, I that's great. I'm glad to know that like all my rewatching of TNG and DS9 will help me understand more of that.
So I think in the trailer, one of the characters is seen in the like Ambojitsu getup, holding the like thing, and she starts cackling, and I'm like, well, what? I don't know what that is. And she's like, oh, no, I can show it to you. And she's like, this makes me lose my mind. And so now I just bring up that clip every now and then.
That's a good one.
Yeah, have you seen Lower Decks?
I haven't.
I recommend it. I thought it was a hoot.
Yeah. It looked like it would be pretty entertaining, especially if like there were like it's been a while. It's been a few years since I rewatched the Star Treks. Mm-hmm. But after I finished Frasier, it seemed like the next logical step.
Yeah, it's reasonable. Yeah, I don't watch Star Trek quite as intently as other folks because I'm a fair weather fan for a lot of things. But I found Lower Decks entertaining even with my like limited knowledge of Star Trek. It was just very helpful to have my housemate watching it with me, because every time I didn't understand a reference, she'd laugh, and I'd be like, okay, what was that a reference to? And then she would explain it to me, and I was like, this is actually very helpful, thank you.
Yeah.
I want like the annotated version of Lower Decks.
I love watching shows with hardcore fans.
Me too.
Unless it's Star Wars. I just can't do it. I can't get into that at all. But like I remember there was a TikTok where it's just like this guy like puts a towel over his head and pretends he's his own girlfriend. Like, we're gonna watch Lord of the Rings, and I don't want you to say anything about it. And I'm like, first, why not? That's like a lecture and a movie at the same time, which is like heaven for me. And then it showed and he's like, no, it's fine, I'll do it. And then it showed a clip of Aragorn, or maybe it was Boromir, kicking a helmet and going, ah! And then like he's like sweating, or he's just like, and she's like, oh come on, there can't be anything interesting about that moment. And so I ended up asking the brothers Murph, I'm like, please explain this to me.
Yeah.
And it was the best thing. And then after that conversation, I decided to read Lord of the Rings after never actually read the book, just watched the movies.
That's the one where Viggo Mortensen like broke his toe when he kicked the helmet, right?
Yeah.
Good times. Yeah, I was like, when did he kick a helmet? I was like, oh no, I remember this part. Yeah, no, it's super fun because I like the annotations. Like, I think it's because I also grew up in that kind of house. Like, my dad was lousy about spoilers, which is annoying for me as someone who hates spoilers. He'd be like, honey, isn't this the part where, like, Kirk comes around the corner and, like, the guy, like, jumps him and kills the person? And I was like, Dad, I haven't seen this episode. He's like, oh, sorry. I'm just like...
That is less fun. I don't enjoy watching movies with people who spoil things, but if they're, like, super excited, where they're like...
I think my dad was just really excited about watching it, and so he just let himself get ahead of himself a little bit. So I like forgive him for it, but it was very much me like side-eyeing, being like, I haven't seen this, right? He's like, well, I didn't think you were paying attention. I was like, I'm sitting in here, so I must be paying attention. Like if I didn't want to watch this, I would go somewhere else in the house. We have more than one room.
That's funny. Did you go ahead.
Oh no.
Did you get into X-Files as well?
No, I did not. I think it's because a lot of that stuff, like, I don't know enough about X-Files to say for sure, but a lot of the stuff that trends even slightly towards horror is, like, a little bit too much for my, like, Weenie Hut Jr. brain.
I didn't either, like, because, like, okay, so I was this total scaredy cat when it came to, Unsolved Mysteries or X-Files, just something like that, because it was more over, like, when I was very young, I heard the movie It, but I never watched it. To this day, I still haven't watched it, because hearing that movie is a lot more frightening than watching it, but all I did was hear it. And so, like, when I was a kid, like, Unsolved Mysteries sounded a lot like some of the sound effects you hear in It at certain points. And so that freaked me out. But Unsolved Mysteries would always come on, I think, after X-Files. So then, like, all those sounds blended into, like, one big horror show for me. So it was a good
Is
time.
Unsolved Mysteries the one with Jonathan Frakes?
No, that was that, like, where he's
asked a bunch of questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, what was that called? I don't remember, but it wasn't. It was John Walsh, I think.
Only remember, like, someone slowing them down a little bit, like maybe like 20 or 30%, so he just sounds like he's super drunk. He's like, you ever try to shoplift from a supermarket? You ever delete a computer at the library? And I'm just like those supercuts of him just asking a bunch of questions is extremely funny to me.
Yeah, that was oh god, I forgot about that.
Did you sleep in a graveyard for a whole night if someone gave you $100? Like,
yeah,
them slowing him down just a little bit is extremely funny. It's cursed.
Yeah. That's fair. I loved it, though. I really, really like that show. But it was like, I think it was on around the same time as Unsolved Mysteries or something like that. So, and like it came on like right when it was like around my bedtime, I think, too. So I didn't get to watch it. But
my family just watched so much TV growing up that I have no real... I can't really differentiate between like what decades things came out. Because I watched them all at the same time, right? I'm watching Star Trek, the original series, for like an hour, and then my dad or mom get bored, and we put on Remington Steele instead. And then we finish with Hogan's Heroes, all the way up through Boston Legal, and then it's like CSI, Las Vegas. It's just like a very eclectic mix. So I'm like, yeah. I know when shows happen. I do not know when shows happen.
I don't know. Like, I think I had my siblings are older, and they were like, I know what I want to watch and what channel it's on or whatever, so I'm going to watch it. And then for me, I think the only time I really had the TV to myself, because like I usually lived with like a bunch of other people, it was before anyone else was awake. It'd be like 5 a.m, and then that's when Sailor Moon would come on. And then that was like the only time I got to watch like...
So are those movies hitting Netflix soon, or is that new Sailor Moon content?
Oh, I don't know. I have a friend who does translation for anime and otome games.
Oh.
And so they said something about it, but everything they said was in Japanese. So I have not been able to look at it further because I didn't hit translate tweet. Just like I saw like a lot of happy emoji or like happy gifs in the replies, but I haven't looked at like any more information on that.
I'm in that camp of people who are like, but Dragon Ball, your manga is now like 2 full arcs ahead of the anime. Are you making more anime? And they're like, we'll never tell.
They're still powering up.
Yeah, it's well, they're looking at the machine that prints money, and they're like, should we turn this machine off? And they're like, maybe we will. And I'm like,
that's fair. I mean, would you? If you had a machine
I would never turn off the money machine. We'd be out and like printing Dragon Ball AF by the time I'm like 95. It'd be like, I'd be whispering I'd show up at a con, people would clap for me, and I'd whisper into the microphone, Super Saiyan 15. Someone in the crowd would cry, and I would just walk out. That'd be my entire presentation. I would never turn off the money machine.
That is, I think that's understandable. I don't know. I think that would be like a wild dream job for a lot of people.
Oh, I can only imagine. Like, they have such media saturation. Like, there aren't enough Dragon Ball Z board games. I will just say that there are not nearly enough. But
are there any?
Yeah, there's I think IDW published 3. I know there's Heroic Battles. I don't remember the second one. I know there's a Perfect Cell one.
I never watched Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, it's fine. I feel like there's a lot of folks who are in the exclusive or Sailor Moon or Dragon Ball Z camp. There are a lot of people who are explicitly they watched one or the other. Like my cousins mostly watch Sailor Moon. I watch Dragon Ball Z. So we just there's a respect there.
That's fun.
And now everyone I know watches My Hero Academia, so it's solved.
That one, God, I really want to catch up on that. I think I've had to retrain myself on how to watch TV in order to watch my episode of Star Trek or two. And oh boy, I'm real rebellious and living high on the hog if I watch two.
I exclusively binge TV and it makes me a nightmare to be around. So I'll sit with my housemates and they'll watch 3 episodes of it and they're like, well, that's probably good for tonight. And I'm like, what?
but there's more.
It's 10 p.m. And they're like, yeah, we're not going to watch until 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, well, why not?
That's fair.
I was watching Legend of Korra with some old housemates of mine back when I lived somewhere else, and they would watch 2 episodes a night, and they'd be like, "That's nice. We'll watch 2 more next week." And I'm like, "It is going to take us so long to get through this."
It does. It takes me forever to get through a show.
I just binge stuff. It's gotten bad in the sense that now when I have friends that I watch things with. They'll be like, "Oh, you want to watch this episode of a show together?" And I'm like, "Sure." And so I'll watch it the minute it comes out, because I'm a nightmare to be around. And then I'll rewatch it with them. And I'm upfront about it. I'm just just so you know, I hate spoilers. And if there's one thing that existing online has taught me, it's that Marvel fans want nobody else to be happy. They're just I just watched WandaVision. You won't believe what happens. Here's several pictures. And I'm like, how did you even get a high-def video of this? It's been out for 13 minutes.
This is the 6th episode.
Right? And so I'm like, okay, I now unfortunately have to bite the bullet and watch it at midnight right when it comes out, which is infuriating because otherwise if I wake up there are already spoilers and hot take articles on my phone.
And do you see them and you're like, "Oh, well now I have to know"?
No, they just spoil things in the headline.
Yeah.
If I'm on Twitter, tweets are spoilery. If I'm on my news websites, there are news sites they pick up that are big spoiler, such and such dies, and they'll have the name spoilered out, but a picture of that character as the article photo. And I'm like, thanks for that.
Do you think that they usually spoil, or do they just not reveal the later plot twist? I'm not arguing with you in any point here. I don't pay attention to those things to ever be spoiled, or to not ever, but just ignore them.
There's websites that just explicitly spoil things as soon as they come out.
How rude! Why would they do that?
30 minutes after because they want clicks.
Oh, that's gross.
And they basically want to be the first thing that comes out with the big recap, so people who are looking for a recap instead of watching the episode can just read that. But it gets picked up by news aggregators like Google. And Google does a terrible job of pruning out spoilers.
They do. I will say I encountered this a lot when I tried caring about Game of Thrones.
Yep, I was about to say Game of Thrones is pretty much the big one where people were because I think it was such a cultural event until the finale for some unknowable reason. They did.
We're just going to pretend it didn't happen.
It turns out the real Iron Throne was friendship.
All along.
Yep. I'm 95% sure that's what Game of Thrones is about. I did not watch Game of Thrones.
I just couldn't care. It was I am an optimist, and they would seem to really get off on destroying all hope.
Trauma porn. Story.
Yeah, and that's never been me. So I tried. I was just hang on. Can we pause here? Why are we getting rid of all the good things and are we just supposed to keep hate watching for Joffrey or something? And because I realized I was only watching for something miserable to happen to this one character.
Right.
And it didn't feel good. I wasn't even like, oh my God, I need to know what happens next, or like excited about what happens next. I'm just like, is he dead yet? I'm going to make popcorn. Like, did he die yet? I made popcorn. Is he dead? And then I'm like, why am I watching this? I don't like anything that's left.
Yeah, and I think part of it comes down to, like, if I can be real with you on this call, I just don't think there's enough, like, black fantasy work being done on, like, in, like, major television scale for me to be interested in fantasy as a genre. Because I'm just like, nah, no. Game of Thrones wasn't it.
No. It wasn't.
Dragon Prince does some good things, so I was like, well, okay. But like, yeah, I need to see some stuff that's more like POC focused for me to be really interested in like fantasy as a genre. That's one of the reasons I like sci-fi, is because sci-fi there's like, it's the future. Future's diverse as hell.
It is.
And I'm like, neat.
I think as a genre, like as a whole, I definitely prefer modern supernatural to anything else.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
I mean, I grew up on just a ton of fairy tales and mythology and folklore and all of that.
So like your Once Upon a Time kind of thing?
I didn't like Once Upon a Time. I wanted
My housemate
to.
was really into it, but she said that she was the only person who was really into it, and I believe her. I've never seen it.
No, I knew some people who were into it. Like, whenever, like, no, I was super into fairy tales as a kid. People, oh, did you watch Once Upon a Time? I'm like, they didn't do it right. Like, I tried watching like the first couple episodes, and I enjoyed Fables. Like, the comic was okay, and but no, the show just it felt too pretty.
Mm-hmm. I was watching Heroes because Heroes was exactly because I hear what you're saying. Like modern, like for me, like the modern superhero myth being transposed onto like random everyday people finding out they have extremely specific superpowers. I was like, oh, that's very cool. I like this. I'd love to see how it turns out. Spoiler alert: I did not enjoy how it turned out. Heroes was not a good show.
Yeah.
No. It's mostly
I remember
like
people being disappointed.
Yeah, imagine if My Hero Academia were just extremely bad. Like just wildly uninteresting. Yeah,
that's too bad.
Yeah, they tried doing a reboot season, which is bold.
Like, wait, maybe we could fix it. Yeah.
I don't really have anything to say other than it's extremely bold of them to be like, no, we're going to do a reboot because everyone hated it when it ended. Full stop. Someone asked me why I was watching the reboot season when I hated the finale, and I remember telling them, have you ever gone to someone's funeral to make sure that they're dead?
Oh no.
And they're like, wild. And I was like, that's roughly how I feel about this. I'm like, no, I have to watch it so that I can have the closure of knowing that they're done for good.
Wow, no, I have not. Like, I think if I felt that way about someone, I probably wouldn't be going to their funeral.
It was like a deification of the hate watch. Like, I don't know.
Okay. You know what? I do understand a hate watch. I hate read a book last year. Oh,
interesting.
Yeah, it was awful. It was so bad. But it was one of those things where, like, I do my best not to judge most things. Like, if I'm going to make a judgment on something, I want to make sure that I'm fully understanding it's where it's coming from and its whole perspective.
If I don't like something and I choose not to like it, I try to learn as much as I can about it so that way when someone's like, why don't you like this? I can be like, well, pulls out my whiteboard. Here are the reasons that I don't like it. And they're like, oh, you very thoroughly researched this. And I was like, yeah, I don't like to just not like things.
Exactly. Like, no, I don't. Yeah, it's if I say very like make a declarative statement of like this sucks, like I really try to make sure that I tried to like it. Like I feel that way, but like like, not to give like too many hot takes here, but like, there are very few board games I will talk about, like, oh, that I will never probably play that, no matter how much I like the person I'm playing with, which says a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But those games, there's two, and I just won't.
Yeah.
But I did. But I think it wasn't until I tried reading this book to really make sure that I wasn't just being a jerk about everyone who had read the book because it was so wildly popular. I read it, I hated it, and then I think I understand nothing new, but I could at least say, like, I have experience in hating this thing.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
I can justifiably not like it.
Right, and the gap there is also, like, you need to make, like, I try to make sure that I'm not dunking on somebody who likes something. So if someone's like, oh, I really like this thing, I'm like, yeah, it's not really for me. And if they're like, oh, why? I'm like, well, as part of a legal agreement and a personal choice of mine, I prefer not to get too much into it because I strongly don't like it, and I don't really want to, like, yuck your yum. And if they're still like, no, I really want to know what you dislike about it, I'm like, okay, so, why in this universe is there one magic school for all of China and India? That doesn't make any sense from a population perspective. That's wild to me. This screams poorly researched. But without getting too into that. That's just a freebie.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Just me screaming into the void.
There could definitely be a lot of upgrades to that world.
Yeah, in general, I'm a pretty big. I support what George Lucas did with, like, the Star Wars Expanded Universe, where he was just like, as long as I get final approval, go off, nerds, and just let people write whatever they wanted, and they just kind of submitted it to him, and you got a lot of really interesting, like, rich stories that fill out the Expanded Universe, and then Disney just kind of swooped in, dunked everything, and said, we're just going to keep what we like. Which is wild to me for a lot of, like, capitalism reasons, and art of storytelling reasons, and the terror of giant multimedia conglomerate reasons, but that's, again, something we don't have the time to get into beyond just, oh, that's neat. I got my Obi-Wan show, so I'm fine with that.
You got Baby Yoda.
Yeah, I was like, The Mandalorian is fun.
Star Wars is, like, not my not my chip place. I don't know. Fandom. There we go. Fandom. That's the word.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I don't really think it's mine either. It's just one of those things that I, like, kind of enjoy because I loosely like sci-fi, and so I'm like, yeah, sci-fi. But it's not something that I would say that I'm in the fandom for.
Yeah. I think I like sci-fi, but it's very, like, I don't like it because it's sci-fi. I like it typically because it's something else. Like, that's being sci-fi.
Yeah, it's fair. I like vaguely supernatural sci-fi. So, like,
yeah. I read another book where it was one of those where it's just like the characters are cool, but it was like the world that was really fascinating to me. And in this world, like, magic came from the earth because of climate change or something, I don't know, but magic came up, like, things changed, and then it, like, directly interacted with, like, electricity and, like, science in that way. So whenever there'd be, like, a magic kind of surge or storm, like, they would have to have magic lights that would operate because all the city's electrical systems would shut down, so then they'd have to be powered by the Fey lines or something like that would happen. So I appreciated, like, books like that would mix, like, you know, maybe technology and magic don't get on well. It wasn't the more popular one that has done that. It was a more obscure book, but I really do like that, where, like, they introduce, like, the two just kind of don't mix because they operate on different laws or natural laws.
I really like stuff like that because it lends them to do my favorite trope, which is using fake science to try and explain even more fake science. Like, I was watching The Flash, which is a show that I still watch. I don't think it's good. I just enjoy watching it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So at one point they're like, "Oh no, she's taken on a bunch of reverse tachyons," and I'm like, "Sure." And like, you know how regular tachyons let you run through time? I'm like, "Sure." They're like, reverse tachyons are the reverse. I was like, "So that you run backwards in time?" They're like, "No, they stop you from running in time." I was like, "Sure." Like, I appreciate the amount of effort you're putting into explaining what is clearly a fake concept.
Like, what was it, the first Star Trek movie they did with Chris Pine and Chris Hemsworth, like before he was Thor? Or like, oh yeah, you just created an alternate timeline. Yes, okay, everything. Second nerds are not going to hear that argument about Kirk didn't do that.
Yeah, they're just like, no. Alternate timeline.
Alternate timeline. So great.
Oh,
I love when they do that.
Yeah, that's how you solve a lot of problems. You're like, this happened on a branch timeline. Although it's actually funny because the Legend of Zelda series branched their timelines that ended up creating more problems.
Really? I don't know enough about Zelda lore.
Oh, it just became really confusing because basically there's 3 timelines, and like the problem is now everyone wants the new games have to conform to this existing timeline, and so they didn't know where to put Breath of the Wild, and so they're like, it's just at the end of all the timelines. It's like all timelines end in Breath of the Wild, and they're like, that doesn't make any sense. And they're like, yep. And I'm like, so you had the canonical timeline for what, like 2 years before you threw it out? And they're like, yep. I'm like, that's fine, I guess.
Well, I mean, it's just like, what if we did this game? Yeah. What are we gonna do for Zelda this year? I don't know, but we have this really great game. Do it, you know?
Yeah, like I'm not here saying that they need to like conform to the timeline that should restrict game development. It is just a little funny they went through all the work of canonizing the timeline, and they're like, we have this perfect canon timeline that all the games adhere to. And they're like, neat. Picks it up, throws it into the garbage. No more timeline.
Is the director a cat? She's like, neat.
I have to assume so.
There's a nice glass of water you have here.
Tip. Oh, man. Okay, so on the more board game subject, what are you playing anything? Are you playing anything good lately?
Let's see. Tomorrow, can I say times? Like tomorrow, I know I'm playing.
It's all relative. This won't be posted until like early May, so tomorrow is a few days ago, is a week from now, is never. It really reinforces that pandemic sense of timelessness because everything is kind of confusingly locked to dates.
I wanted to keep this evergreen for you if something happened, but I'll say I'm looking forward to playing Mountain Goat soon, mostly because it's just like a fun little game, but like also allows you to just chat freely while you play.
Yeah, I haven't played that one yet. I played Sequoia and really liked it.
Yeah, I have not. I've not played any of the other BG table ones.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to try Mountain Goats.
That one's fun. It's just like it's a reprint of an older game. That was like level X. And you can play it on Happy Meeple, which is like another one of those little board game websites. But mostly for either solo or 2 players, and that's it. But we'll be playing. I'll be playing Mountain Goats pretty soon. I'm excited about that because I just haven't played that form of the game. I have not played with the mountains. There's no other difference. I have gotten a copy of Sumner Wars, so looking forward to playing through that.
Got mine on the corner over there. Hasn't quite made it onto the shelf yet, but it's happening. Yeah,
I'm playing the digital one. So
I have the physical one.
I have not played the physical one, but it sounds fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be one of those things where like I'm planning on going on like a weekend trip with a friend once we're both like past the 2-week window of full vaccination, and then I'm just going to be like, I've got a bunch of games that benefit from multiple plays between the same group of players.
Yes, that is a dream. Yeah. I hope. Yes, someday. Someday it'll be nice to be able to like travel to go see friends just to spend a weekend playing games with them.
Just me grabbing all my unmatched.
I've only played Cobble and Fog.
That's a good one.
I really liked it. I mean, again, it's Sherlock, so
right. Sherlock is a hot take. I think Sherlock is the most fun character in Cobble and Fog, but that's because I really like feeling smart, and Sherlock does a good job making me, the player, feel smart. Where I'm like, you've got a 3 in your hand, and they're like, that's a very common number, and I'm like.
That's fair. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with liking a game that makes you feel clever. Like, even if like it's not you doing all the deduction yourself, if you feel like you've really gotten somewhere, then it feels good.
No, I agree.
I mean, I really enjoy getting to look at like deep details of things and then seeing what kind of information I can gather from all the information available. So I like Chronicles of Crime for that reason.
Yep.
But with most games like that, like most of those like mystery, like let's solve things together games, I'm like, okay, hang on. Yes, I can't wait to play some of the other ones. I've only played the base one.
Oh, I really like 1900.
Yeah.
I think 1900 is super fun.
I can't wait.
I like Noir because Noir has you can scan something, you can scan a card to punch whatever you're dealing with. I wish they had leaned into that mechanic a bit more because there's a lot of things you can't punch. But I would have liked a version in which I could have punched everything. Like everything had a unique thing for me being like, all right, it's 1920s, it's time for some violence.
A bit of the old
mystery, but
yeah. Oh goodness. All right, I'm curious about the noir one. I have such mixed feelings about noir as a genre. I loved it as a kid. Because I was a weird kid. But like as I got older, it's just like I went back to like kind of read Graham Greene and things like that. I'm like, man, this guy has some really, really out of touch emotional issues he needs to sort out before he tries to solve crimes.
Yeah, I just ended up reading a lot of things and being like, this character has some specific viewpoints about women.
Yep.
And I just gently put the book back down.
Yep, I'm like, oh, well, I guess I can't enjoy noir as much as I used to. Same thing with like Daphne du Maurier, who I'm still like fairly nostalgic for. I loved their work a lot, but like looking back for something like, God, this is dramatic. Man, this is really dramatic. Like, what is the big deal here? I don't know. I still enjoy it.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, yeah. No, I think you'll enjoy 1900. I had a blast with it.
I'm excited. I can't wait to play with games with people again. Like Chronicles of Crime isn't necessarily something that I think we'd have to have a lot more discussions about things like murder and homicide if I were to play with my youngest, or like hardcore drug use. So it's not necessarily something I'd want to play with my kids.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. I believe in trying to view humanity in general with compassion, but you can't necessarily do that if you're playing crime drama games. But you also like want to make sure that you're not just going, they look guilty because they haven't bathed. Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta do it the way Law and Order does it, which is they look guilty because they're the first person I talked to this episode.
Exactly.
Or there's 20 minutes left in this episode. No way this person's guilty. Which is how I learned to watch Law and Order, and I think that's actually what ruined television for me. Is like, I was probably like 10 or 12, and I realized that after watching a lot of Law and Order, if there were 20 minutes left in the episode, the person was never guilty. And that was just wild to me.
There is that. There is a lot of that in detective shows. Or there's just like that person who's like witness we've been counting on this entire time. Like, they almost got us. That happens a lot in Sherlock movies or shows.
That's
we found this thread.
Are you getting are you getting the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles?
The what now?
There's I think it's a Phoenix Wright sort of Ace Attorney spinoff. That's the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. It famously features Sherlock Holmes. No, I have relation.
Ace Attorney, but I have not played that or gotten that yet. No. That's
I think it's coming out soon. It's part of, I think it's like when Enola Holmes came out, the Arthur Conan Doyle estate sued because they're like, how dare you have a Sherlock Holmes who treats women with respect? We have a copyright on that character. And you're like, yeah, weird flex, y'all.
Yeah, I saw that article too where they're like, no, nothing to, basically anything that makes Sherlock human. They're like, this is an outrage.
Yes, he can only be a lizard. A lizard in a funny hat. Don't get me wrong, I would 100% watch a lizard with a funny hat solve crimes.
Yeah. Well, like that Geico Gecko's got it going.
Probably. I think they tried to do a like spin-off show about the Geico cavemen. Like, I think they actually tried to make that into a real show, and that tanked because I think people might actually have some threshold where they don't like advertisements.
Yeah, no, it was weird. It was just like, it's just, I can't think of any, like, I know that there's been a few commercials where they try to make it a TV series. Like, the California Raisins, they tried to do that. And
they never did the Hot Dad Hamburglar. McDonald's went through all the trouble of making Hamburglar into a hot suburban dad and just left it on the table.
I mean, they didn't do, the Snuggles bear.
Oh, yeah.
This fabric softener.
Mm-hmm.
Absolute #1 hit banger. I was obsessed with that stuff as a kid.
I feel like they probably could have run a TV commercial with the Old Spice guy.
Oh, yeah. Like, look at the horse, look at me. Now look at your man, look at me. Yeah, totally. I mean, Terry Crews, they had him, like, do, like, the
things, yeah.
Muscle Man band. Mm-hmm. Like, normal humans can do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that was real. That was really fun to see how they set that up, though. Yeah. I don't know. Wow. You know what could have had, like, its own TV show as a commercial was a Crossfire board game commercial in, like, the 90s. They put so much energy into that theme song for that board game that it seemed like a shame that they didn't do something with it. Like, the loser got blasted into a cartoon portal because that was a huge theme in the 90s. There's just like, you're in reality, and oh no, now you're a cartoon.
I never got past perfection. Like, I think a lot of people generationally that I know blame that game for giving them anxiety because it's just like, better put everything away as fast as you can. Oh, it's ruined, and I'm like.
That's fair. I mean, it was a super stressful time, that game.
Yeah. No.
Are you okay?
I'm fine.
Do you need a minute?
No,
we can pause.
See, now I'm just going to show people, like, Fireball Island. Like,
yeah.
Fireball Island is the dream now. Because you're just like, what's fun? Marble shoots. You know what's not fun? Standing on marble shoots.
Fireball Island is a pretty big hit for both my littles, which is fantastic, which is exactly what I was hoping for. Because one is just like a chaos factor. They just want to play with the components of whatever we're playing with. So, like, as long as they kind of they're usually, like, for player boards and stuff, we give them components and their own board and then just see what they do with it. And they'll make up their own rules as they go. And, like, okay, I'm going to go through the discard pile and flip over this card and stuff. It's fun. I like the way that they show me how they see things. But yeah, like Fireball Island, I've played that the first time at Dice Tower West, like right in the before times. And I got to play with, like, another kid. I like playing games with kids. Kids are great board game people. They're fun.
That's fair. I think Rob Davio taught me how to play Fireball Island at Beach G-Con a few years back. I only remember this because the conversation was, I had basically no treasures, and he was like, you kind of need to get some treasures to win. And I was like, I'm rich because I have friends. And then I ended up with a lot of treasures by the end of the game. And he commented, "Oh, I thought said you were rich because you had friends." And I said, "I realized that with enough money, I could buy better friends." And I just, sometimes my mouth is like 5 steps ahead of where I'd like for it to be, and I'm just like, oh well.
No, I think you have a rapier wit, as they say. It works.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword, I think.
Oh, double-edged sword wit, then.
That's fair. Yeah. Alright, so next part of this show is generally I have people do a game that I keep saying I've loosely been calling Game the Name. We are now at the point where I've done this enough times that's just what it's called. I'm not going to change it.
Okay.
I'm always like, everything's workshoppable. No, we're done. We workshopped it. So the pitch is I'm going to come up with some name of a game. And then we're going to just go back and forth and kind of ideate on what kind of game a game with this name would be. And then a publisher is going to watch this. They're going to be like, that's an incredible idea. They're going to put it on Kickstarter, make $10 million, and we're both going to retire off of the $30 they'll give us. I don't know enough about manufacturing to confirm if that's an accurate breakdown of Kickstarter costs.
True. I think you may be giving us a generous bonus with that. Yeah. That $30.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
As far as I know, usually, we'll have to pay $30 to make the idea happen, whether or not we're back.
No, that's fair. Yeah, and then we have to buy the game ourselves.
Yeah.
Sad times. Okay, so here's the name that I've got. The wall of games behind you gave me some ideas. So I think that the name of the game that we're going to work on is a game called The Legacy of Sherlock Holmes.
Okay.
So, what speaks to you mechanically?
The Legacy of Sherlock Holmes?
Yeah, The Legacy of Sherlock Holmes is the name of the game. You get a box. The box is The Legacy of Sherlock Holmes on it. What kind of game is it? What's inside? How does it play? Etc.
I've been incredibly fascinated with keepsake games.
Okay.
So, once you're, building a journal or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. I like this. Because that's actually really cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think even better, because it would be a legacy. And also, this is kind of like a calling out to the moment in Amelie, where she, I do see that movie, Amelie. Mm-hmm. Okay, there's this moment where she drops a lid, and the lid goes rolling across the kitchen or the bathroom floor. It knocks a tile loose, and behind that tile is this kind of keepsake box of some little boy had hid in the bathroom wall, and she found it 50, 60 years later. So that's how I imagine the premise would be. So the game itself, especially if it's Kickstarter, right? So it comes in a deluxe version. You would get a actually have some boxes, but some kind of a carved wooden box, and you open it up, and inside there's some letters of some old unsolved cases of Sherlock Holmes, and a family tree that shows you're either related to Wiggins or Watson or Holmes himself, but you basically find all these lost cold cases with everything that you need to be hey, I've already solved this. There's a fake bottom in this case where you could find the solution, but I want to see if you can solve this, which I am solved right before my death. So here's a legacy. Solve these crimes.
Right. So he solved it and never told anybody, but he left the solution around for you to solve it, and so that way you can prove that you've earned your right to be included in this legacy.
Yeah. Or maybe he was just or maybe it's the technology wasn't available in this time, but it's close and I'm dying.
He's this is what I suspect, but you're going to need to be able to use your modern day technology to connect these dots and see if I was actually right.
Yeah.
So I thought that would be really neat.
You the player then become the legacy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's sort of it's like a keepsake deduction game.
Yeah.
And so what you could do is you could have I think on the technical side you can make this really interesting, right? So you could have a unique ID for something that if you like look it up, it takes you to like a website where the details of your case are kind of auto-generated from a bunch of different pieces of cases that they've built. So that way, like your case and my case are very different. They like might deal with the same thing, which is like, oh, like, you know, there was a jewelry store. It's locked every night by the banker. Someone broke in. They cleaned the place out. No duplicates of the key were made. The key was never stolen. How did they do it? And we have to like figure out how they did this break-in. But yours might be like a blackmailer has been like committing these crimes. You need to figure out their identity.
Yeah. Something else that would be like pretty cool to also give you kind of like a keepsake game, but like, you know, let's say you're in a pandemic and you don't get to play games with as many people where it would be more fun. Like maybe part of the Kickstarter looks like you get like that initial keepsake box, but then like you get some like specific localized to you rewards. So like maybe you go on a scavenger hunt in your own town, connecting pieces and solving clues, getting this whole letter where you put it together, but then you have to send that letter off, make a copy and send that letter off to someone else in their hometown. And so like it has to travel around the world and then send it back to the publisher and everybody gets the final letter. Like,
ooh, that's
solved it or you didn't.
Yeah, because you could even do a thing where it's like you create like a loop of people and every person in the loop has different details. Like basically, I have case 1A, you have case 1B, Benita has case 1C, and so like all these different details are available, but I need to, they're like Holmes is like, okay, I know the person who you should contact about this, it's this person, they give me like a mailing address that gets forwarded along to you, the next person. There have to be ways to prevent abuse, of course, but like...
Yeah.
But that could be really neat if it's like, oh, for, you know, even if you sign up as a group of friends, right? So like 5 friends sign up and each of us gets like 6 cases split into 5 pieces and we each have a different piece of the case.
Yeah.
So then we have to physically write letters to like include clues that we found and mail them along.
Yeah. I think that almost feels like similar to the graphic novel adventure books, like cooperative game that Van Ryder put out.
Oh yeah, I've played those.
Yeah, I played one with like Benita, Jackie, and I think Fortessa was the other person, where we all played like the Baker Street Irregulars. Where it's just like we had our individual like, oh, I see this on my book, so that means I can investigate this unique thing. But something where it's just like, yeah, I do like the idea of it being like you have to look around historical landmarks in your area. Because like what if something happens to that historical landmark, you'll be a little more invested in like the local culture in your area to kind of preserve that and keep it going. Kind of like that Save the Clock Tower lady and then
Back to the Future.
Back to the Future. Save the clock tower. Like you didn't care about that. Like Marty didn't care about that clock tower, but you bet he did when he went back in time.
Oh, absolutely. Once he came back, he was just like, that clock tower is critical to the growth and development of this community.
Yep. Save the clock tower. Yeah. I always think about that lady when I think about people's passions and saving things. Like, she was right. You gotta save that clock tower.
Clock tower is important.
Yeah.
You cannot underrate that clock tower.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that would be fun. Like, I think that's what I liked about, I never actually ran an RPG successfully, but the world building aspect I absolutely adored. Just going around like places that I just drove past all the time and never stopped to look at, and then making something sinister happen there that people would have to then discover.
Yeah, well, that sounds great to me. So yeah, like I said, if you're a publisher out there and you're like, you know what I need? A keepsake deduction game with some local embedding. That's the legacy of Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
I think that's good stuff. All right, so I've got my Q&A segment of the of this interview as well.
I'm ready.
And so it's relatively light stuff. So you've been making content. What I was going to ask was, how'd you get started? What motivated you to get into it? And then sort of what parts of it have you particularly enjoyed?
Part of this feels like random a happenstance. And then
that's a lot of content.
Yeah. I mean, it was just like, I was a big like content consumer, because content creators are the people that I had to talk, like, or not talk, but like, they were the ones who I could like hear someone talk about this thing that I loved, and it didn't have to come from me. So I wouldn't say it was like kind of a conversation, because that meant like conversations usually have more back and forth and weaving between people. Mm-hmm. But at least like listening to people talk about this very niche thing that I was very into was really important for me for a long time, because I lived in a fairly isolated area. Mm-hmm. And so I think I just like would comment in that regard. But that was how I got to meet Kiki from Girls Game Shelf, who encouraged me to go to like my first I said almost anime board game convention on my own. Introduced me to Carla from Weird Giraffe, who I got to work with and kind of got to see like more of like publisher, like independent publisher side of board gaming, which introduced me into like the larger like publishing side of board gaming, going to Gamma, and then like getting to just meet a lot of people basically at board game conventions. And then PAX U, I met Girls Game Shelf, and then at Dice Tower West they invited me to hang out with them at Dice Tower West, and then they invited me to go on a panel, and a couple months later quarantine happened, and then they invited me to join Girls Game Shelf and do streaming, because I didn't know how to edit videos, so streaming seemed like something I could do, and there you go.
I have only learned barely how to edit videos, and oof, I'm always just like,
yeah.
I don't know how people do those like multi-camera setups. I have a lot. Basically, I know just enough about video work now to have a lot of respect for people who do it.
So much. And like, even when it comes to just streaming, like, I mean, like, my channel is mostly like, I hope you like me, because like there's nothing fancy happening on this channel. But like, just people who do like some people are just absolutely killing it. Like, Ruel looks like his stuff is fantastic, and the brothers Murph and Paul have been at, like, they've all been at this for a really long time, so like they look really good too. But like Panda, like Amanda Panda, seems to have like a natural knack for producing that is just really, really good. Like, she's like, oh, okay.
Are a lot of fun too.
They are, and they look great.
I've been a guest. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, she really has production down. So I have so much respect for her, and she's like incredibly generous and like with like just the community, you know. So it's been like wild, but I'm just having fun with it, which sounds like super cliche, but
no, I think that's the important thing, right? As I joke with people, when you stop having fun with it, you just turn into me. I still have fun with it. I just joke. I have a lot of friends that are like, "Oh, what board game are you playing?" I was like, "Well, I've got a bunch of reviews." And they're like, "Oh, what one are you playing, like, for you?" And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah. I think I don't like, it's mostly Tabletopia is how I get any games played. Like,
yeah, basically same.
This year. Like, what's weird though, I was like totally kneecapping myself because I wasn't allowing that to like count, which is like really weird. Like, for a really long time I was like, oh, I haven't played any board games, but I was playing like on Tabletopia, playtesting, and like not even playtesting, but just like trying out different games and then talking about them on stream on Girls Game Shelf. I'd be playing like 3 different games a week, but I wasn't allowing it to count in my brain because it wasn't like at a table. But once I got rid of that, I'm like, holy crackers, I play a lot of games, but
yeah, I think
not this week.
I tend not to count games that I play on an app against a computer. But if I'm playing and there's another person involved, or if it's like a solo game that I'm playing on Tabletopia, then I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I think it's because if I'm playing it via an app, I'm not doing all of the physical work that's required. So I feel like you're reviewing the app, not the game, right? Like Dominion as an app solves one problem that a lot of people have with Dominion, which is setup and shuffling your cards all the time. But those are worth mentioning if you're reviewing the physical board game Dominion. Like, it's going to take you a while to set up your kingdom, and shuffling will be a pain eventually.
Yeah, I felt that way about Onirim. I played that. That was like my solo game for a really long time. Really long time. That's why I
like Dorfromantic. It's basically a board game.
Yeah.
It's very similar to like Slay the Spire, right? In that like it is a board game that has to be a video game because it cannot be a board game. And I know they're making a Slay the Spire board game, and I'm going to be very interested to see how that turns out.
I'm curious. I know they did the same with like Armello. It's another one of those video games where you move in hex movements. You have like asymmetric powers and stuff like that, and it would be like a really gorgeous board game. But like I think as a board game mechanic wise, it'd be very dull. But it's a lot more fun as a video game.
Yeah, I know Tim Fowers is working on Paperback Adventures as well, and that's going to be like his paperback plus Slay the Spire sort of thing.
Yeah, that would be great. I love word games. There just aren't enough that I've been able to play.
I've played it, and it is very weird and very fun.
Oh, I can't wait.
Like, have you played the original paperback?
Once, I think at a board game night.
It is very different.
Yeah.
It's not just about like spelling words. It's also about like figuring out what order the letters should be in, and like, okay, I want to do this type of damage, so I have to spell a word that has these letters in this order and ends with this. Okay, are there words that I can do with that? And it's fascinating.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah. One word game video game I played a lot of was called Word Worm. It's a little tiny worm where he eats words, does combos, almost like that Boggle style where you had to like connect words in a line that way.
I used to teach Boggle for like a class because it was a really useful computer science exercise that uses Boggle to like demonstrate a concept. The problem is whenever you're writing a Boggle board, like if you're writing a Boggle board randomly on a whiteboard, you have to take great pains to make sure you're not writing any swear word. Like, you have to write everything out. You have to, the smart thing to do would have been to generate a Boggle board that I know had no swear words on it, and then just write that out every time, but I kept doing it from scratch, and so every time it was an adventure to like, is today the day that I'm like, SHIP?
Yeah.
Like, shit.
I think I think even in Boggle, the way that they did the dice, like it was impossible. There was some way that like I think C and K or like F and U were always on the same die, so you couldn't accidentally spell something vulgar.
That seems wise. That seems wise.
I remember being so disappointed when I discovered that. Like, I remember we were on a trip with my dad, and my stepsister and I were playing Boggle, which turns out to be like the noisiest possible game you could play in a hotel room. Like shaking that little
all
like
those dice.
But I remember it was just like, oh, we're so excited because we thought we spelled a bad word, and we're like, well, because you're like tee, and we're like, wait a second. And I remember my sibling ended up going to bed because I had to break this down, where I had to like study all the letter dice that were inside of there to see if it was even possible for something like that to happen. It was not. I got in trouble for staying up too late.
Look at that enforced family friendliness. Wild.
It was fun though. No, and I don't think we ever played again after that because I was just like, no, we have to find this out. I was so excited. I was like, whoa, how did they do that? Because like I didn't know you could design games. What a wild concept.
What a wild concept. Speaking of creation more broadly, are there areas of like content creation or other game creation that you are interested in that you haven't tried yet?
I think that's my secret, Cap, is I'm interested in just about a lot of things. I am, by my very nature, a bit of a social explorer. I really like understanding and finding out how things work, how people like to interact with them, what makes them good for one community but not for another, and how to open that up for more people. And then, like, also, how does it work? How does it break? Like, what kind of personality, mind, like, person would engage with this in that aspect. So I think it's just development was really, and game design itself, like talking with game designers and game developers has been one really, really, I think refreshing is not the right word, but after having a lot of those conversations where people just tell me more about like their process of design, their journey, and their experience of like how they see games versus a player and consumer of games is very like kind of like jumping into an ice cold pool on a really hot day. You're like, oh my god, this is so cool! Like, wow! Like, I don't know, but it's been I've loved that. I want to talk to more retailers and find out more about that end, especially where retail meets hospitality management in a board game cafe. Because those are, I'm really invested in third spaces, like, and how to make those happen, how they work, and how they would work in different communities, like, again, different cities and things like that.
Right.
I did a lot of sociology and psychology in college, so that tends to be where my brain goes.
I did human-computer interactions, so I am in a similar part of town. I'm just I'm that, but talking to the computer. And the computer talks back sometimes.
Hello, Dave.
Exactly. I'm afraid I can't let you do that. Yeah. That kind of energy.
Yeah. So I'm inherently curious. So I like streaming because it allows me to be. I really want to know everything I can, and I'm just having a really great time asking questions and finding out about people and finding out more about this space and how to make it more human.
That's great. Yeah, I've only been to a few cafes. So I've only been to West Coast board game cafes. Because I've been to Game House in LA, lovely place. There's a place out in Berkeley, Victory Point. They're like a 20-minute walk from my favorite concert venue, so my like go-to strategy has just been never go to a concert alone, drag a friend to the concert, meet them in Berkeley at Victory Point, we play board games at Victory Point, and then we walk to the concert venue, do the concert, come back, and then leave. And that's just quite the day. And then Mox up in Seattle has just been excellent.
Yeah. And I love Mox. But I think it's just like any kind of third space environment. Like, I love retro arcades.
Ooh.
I would go to pinball conventions every year. Like, those were really, really fun. It's amazing how much there is to learn about pinball and that culture around it. Like, sorry, I'm also feeling like nostalgic, so I was just thinking about pinball conventions the other day. But yeah, whatever makes a third space work, I'm about. So I think I try to do that with my streams, where it's just like as much as you can.
Yeah, that's great.
Really, yeah.
There's an arcade museum in San Francisco that's really cool. It's got a bunch of like extremely old and very recent arcade machines.
Awesome.
Yep. I try to go there whenever I'm in the city because it's free entry, and then you can just like look at some old arcade machines and see what happens.
Do you play them, or do you read them, or like read about them, or?
Yeah, both. There are some that you can like. There's some that were like from the turn of the previous century, and you hurts me to say, but there are some from the turn of this most recent century as well. They're just in better shape. Where you can like put in a quarter and it'll like act out a little scene. Oh. And that's like the whole thing. You're like, oh, that's neat.
That's awesome. Oh, I love it. I love those things.
Oh, it's a super cool space.
I love museums as a whole.
I like interactive ones a lot. So I like science museums and that sort of stuff where it's like, I've always found this stuff really fascinating.
Yeah. We used to go to the Exploratorium a lot. That one's really fun.
I do love the Exploratorium. I grew up closer to Pittsburgh, so we had the Carnegie Science Center. And that was a big hit. It was a 2-hour drive from the house. Like some days we would go and it would be like the hugest thing. My family would just be like going to Pittsburgh. It was great. We had a really good time.
What else is in Pittsburgh?
Steelers, Pirates, Penguins. Pittsburgh itself is kind of on the up and up. It's becoming a little bit more of there's a younger population moving to Pittsburgh, I think from more rural areas. For a lot of places, Pittsburgh is the big city. Especially for a lot of West Virginia, Pittsburgh is the big city. A lot of rural Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh is the big city. Even some of Ohio, that they don't want to go to Columbus or Cincinnati. Pittsburgh's still the big city for them. So yeah, a lot of some youth culture is popping up there. Pennsylvania also enjoys I think no sales tax on clothes. So a lot of people will travel to Pittsburgh from other states to buy clothes because they, essentially get a discount.
Yeah. I think on the West Coast, Oregon is no sales tax. Still, I think. So that
all I know is they will not let me pump my own gas. And that has always been a surreal experience for me.
Yep. Oh, yeah. No, there is hell to pay if you try to pump your own gas in Oregon.
Yep. I'm just no, I don't. It's fine. I always feel like I'm imposing. And I understand that that's the law, but I feel bad for making someone else do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Meh. But, yeah, no, I think it was Steelers. I think I was thinking of the Steelers. So I'm I don't know anything about Pittsburgh. Wait, nope. Every time I try to think about Pittsburgh, I think about Philadelphia.
I think the Inspector Gadget movies were filmed in Pittsburgh, and The Dark Knight Rises.
Nice.
Yep. That's basically all I know about Pittsburgh.
Okay. Yeah. Sweet. I know it's east.
Yeah, but not as east as PAX Unplugged.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. I'm I think it's really east.
Philadelphia is even further east.
So I've spent very little time there.
Yeah. I'm hoping to go to PAX Unplugged this year, but we'll see.
Yeah. It's a tough call.
Yeah. I'm trying to be optimistic.
Fair. That's totally fair.
So that's kind of where my brain is at. I'm just I'll be hopeful, but also the hotel that I got booked for it has a cancellation policy that is I can cancel up to the day before. So
that's good.
We'll see.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So speaking of some of the other work you're doing, you do a bunch with Tabletop Live Network. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've done a couple of them.
Yeah. So how did your work with them get started?
So that is the Tabletop Live Network is an effort put together by the brothers Murph and Ruel Gaviola because I believe that board game Twitch is a very niche place, and board game content is very niche in and of itself. But on Twitch in particular, it's mostly geared toward high sponsored streamers and celebrity streamers and things like that. So that path to partner for board gamers is nigh impossible. But especially over the last year during everything, a lot of people turned to Twitch in order to play board games with communities that they had been previously cut off from, and I think it has done really well. A lot of people who were streaming years ago have come back and done more. And so because Ruel Gaviola and the brothers Murph all seem to be very, very community focused people that
Ruel have that much time?
I'm pretty sure he's Santa Claus and has some sort of time bending magic.
Yeah, I have to assume so.
Because he also looks like he's still in his 30s. Just a little more gray. But he looks super young. He's got great skin.
Bless him.
He's so wonderful.
What a nice dude.
He is. So I think that was something that they all put together to just promote community and grow things, and also just help, because there's so many new content creators, if you will, that sprung up in the last year, that it just gave everyone a place to connect, to give each other.
For them as well. I'm really excited. Yeah. I've seen a lot of like new folks popping in the last year or so, and that's been really, really exciting, honestly.
I'm really glad that I ended up doing content, and I ended up doing it this year and coming in with the people that I have and getting to know the people that were here previously. I think that's been the best part. So TLN has just been like a community effort, and it's at first it was like everybody's just like, we want in, and they're like, wait, you do? It was just like, and then it just became like this really big thing where it's just like they kind of do a lot of like the organization and things like that, but at no point does it ever feel like anything less than a community effort.
That's good.
To get everybody together. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I like it.
Good. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how you stream.
Okay.
So, how do you choose what games you want to stream, and what qualities of a game make it good or bad for streaming?
I think I'm still figuring that out. I don't know. I play games I have fun with, that I enjoy. That, like, the thing about Twitch is incredibly interactive. So with YouTube and other formats of creation and media, there's a lot more of a fourth wall, like, that doesn't get broken between the audience and the creator. But in Twitch, a lot of that kind of breaks down, not in a way that so far has been too personal, too violating. Like, board game Twitch community seems to be really lovely about like respecting those boundaries between like content creator and like live streaming, and then like not going too far. So I really, really, really appreciate the community for that a lot, because it can be really scary just being out there live, and then like kind of anything can happen. So that's been great. And so, you know, I really get a lot of feedback from my community about like what they're there for and what they are not for. And overall, it seems to be that, like, it's just like, even if they don't know what game I'm playing, or they never heard of it, or it's like an older game, like sometimes they'll talk about like game components and then just kind of show off like my favorite game components, or if I broke down and got an upgraded components this year, which I hadn't done before. Just going over something like that, building Legos, talking about board games, playing them overhead. So it's just kind of whatever. For me, I've used the channel to play games that have been sitting on my shelf for a really long time. Whether I just never played them solo, or I've just been too intimidated to play, or whatever it is, the stream has given me a really good resource to play things that I would not allow myself to engage with ordinarily, because it would either be solo or I just couldn't convince other people to play.
Right.
So I use it like that. I use it to gain more experience on my shelf of opportunity.
Ah, yes, the shelf of opportunity. I'm glad people have started using that more than like other terms for it.
Yeah, I'm kind of over shaming myself for ridiculous things like being human.
Yeah, that's fair. No, I hear that. So have you mostly been doing board game streams, or have you been doing like video game streams as well?
So I do video game streams once a week, because I love, I would not allow myself to play video games no matter how much I love them. But if I'm doing it for like work, then it doesn't count. So that has also lowered that barrier between like what I allow myself to do or allow myself to enjoy. Streaming has really just given me a lot of space to just do things I love, because otherwise I would just never stop working on whatever else is around for me to do. So it's just like, Monique, sit down and play. I'm like, I can't. There's people waiting for you to play. Okay, I'll play.
Right. Now you're like, oh, the people. I'm doing it. I have to do it for them.
Yeah, I mean, at first it definitely started like that, and now it's just like that's not a healthy relationship to have with play, and that was the last kind of advice I'd give to anyone. Like, oh, don't play for other people, play for yourself because it's enjoyable and you love it, and it gives back to you whenever you engage in something that you love and enjoy that much. And now I'm just trying to live vicariously through my own words.
That's the dream. So, oh gosh.
So, yeah, sorry, video games of the week.
I had something tip of tongue. Oh, I got it back. I was about to ask when I can expect your Pokemon Puzzle League streams.
Oh, I have no idea how I'd set up a 64 to.
I can definitely tell you how. I can definitely tell you how to do that. Okay. I only know because I just hooked up my N64 to my TV downstairs. It looks very bad. Turns out the N64 was not meant to be put on a TV that has a higher number than it does.
Yes, that's true.
I was like, it's only got one Nintendo per inch, and this is over the limit. But so I got one of those. There's an HDMI output you can get for the N64, and then I have an Elgato HD60S Plus. Mm-hmm. I don't do a lot of streaming because my computer is venerable and spiteful and dying. But it'll hopefully be none of those things in the near future. I just need to actually go and buy a new computer.
I like the idea that your computer is just like a crusty old sidekick, or it's just like, let me retire.
Yeah, it's just like, I've been doing things since 2013. And I'm like, yeah, it's probably time for him to go. Like, they don't make DDR3 RAM anymore, so I can't buy more RAM for this anyways. So, like, the problem is I know one of my components is bad, but if I replace any of the components, I basically have to buy an entirely new computer. I might keep the case. The case is really nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
I run everything on a laptop that I got for school.
Dang.
Yeah. So I'm like, I just started having guests on. I'm like, I'll play whatever you want, but please not. Maybe less this, because my computer's just like. It's a good laptop, but it's just not meant for all of this.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. Yeah, I need to figure out what kind of computer I can support having, and then I need to work towards the dream of making that happen.
Yeah.
So for I will say, to a point you made earlier about a lot of people turning to streaming for access to a community that they had lost access to because of the last year. How do you think that the pandemic has really changed or affected your audience? Like the people that you regularly stream with, or like the people that you see on your stream?
I mean, what I really, really hope that people are getting as audience members out of the Twitch, out of when they watch my channel, is a safe place to just kind of hang out, chill, have fun, relax. Chat can get really vulnerable sometimes, not in a way that crosses anything, but I think people have just been with each other together this last year. Whether they're in my chat or Amanda's chat, Benita's chat, the Murph's chat, anything. I think you just keep running into each other in different places. I may be streaming right now, but later on I'll be in someone else's chat, and then we're just two people in this enjoying the chat. So I hope that they just had a place to be human, where they didn't have to be anything to anyone, and that they could just be someone who loves the thing that I love too, and that we could just love it together, hopefully, in most of these spaces. But, or at least that's the hope. The hope is that they have a place to just be and have fun.
No, That's a really nice sentiment, though. I hope that's what they're getting out of it.
Me too. That's what I get out of it. So I hope that's it.
That's good. Yeah, I think I really miss doing more like streaming stuff and like popping on more streams. I just haven't had the bandwidth for it lately. But like, I really like part of what really got me into the board gaming community was there was an older stream where a few people would just like get together, drink a bit, and talk about board games on camera with each other, and that was really like the first streaming content I watched. And yeah, so I've popped on a couple, and I've like I said, the streaming community is very gracious and has graciously like hosted me on a few, but it's something I'd like to see more of, and I'm really excited that it's happening for a lot of folks.
Yeah, me too.
So, like, how do you think that like things gradually reopening is going to affect your streaming? Like, how much of this are you planning to continue to do long term, or are we still in the like haven't really thought about it phase?
It's hard. Like, I feel like I talked about this a couple of people recently, but on one hand, it's hard to know what I don't know. On the other hand, people are still home, both the streamers and the audience. So
It's true.
Like even people who have gone back to the office are still like in a capacity where they can work and lurk and watch the stream at the same time. Once the world opens up and people like their lives begin to fill up, because like considering like I have children, like people whose kids have sports, piano lessons, going to a friend's house, after school events, dances, clubs, tutoring, anything like that, that's going to be time where I'd be streaming or somebody else would. And you know, I don't think that like we'll lose those people in our community, but it may be harder to gain that kind of time with them like we've had the past year. But I don't think that's a bad thing or a loss. Like I've seen the streaming as this is something I can build and work on to hopefully take me forward into like whatever I do next. And I hope that it works out the same way for other people. Like I have no idea what's next. So I have no idea that like it would go anything like it has. So I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants on one hand, but I also know that I don't know that I can rely on this like in the future. If what I'm focused on is making it a viable resource. Not saying that it can't be done. I just don't know that I've had the capacity to build it in that direction.
Yeah.
But I think for people who really want to make that happen, I think they can. I think it's totally like, I don't think anybody, again, is going anywhere. I just think their time may be more limited. So I don't know if we have the community right now to support all of us, but I don't think that I don't know. Because people are going to go back to work, both people who are streaming and people who are watching. So that will change things. But then you have people like who are like board game media personalities that also have been able to sustain themselves doing this in this capacity that aren't going anywhere. So I think it will fluctuate a bit, but I don't think that there will be any shortage of media content or stream content. I don't think there will be any shortage of people who are there to watch it. I think it will just fluctuate and change before settling down, and it will just look very different than what it is now.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Yeah, I've heard, I do not have children, so this is not necessarily my opinion as much as I've heard it echoed from other people, but there is definitely an interesting conversation in the community about how, like, the expectations around media folks and, like, how the complexities of trying to, you know, make sure that you're doing right by your kids can affect that, and especially around, like, convention attendance and that sort of stuff. One thing that I've been talking with a lot of people about during the pandemic is how much, like, there have been some really good shifts from some publishers on, like, getting information out to people that doesn't require you to go to Gen Con or BGG, and that's been something that I would really like to see continue, just for an accessibility thing. Like, I went to, I think Lucky Duck had a press event, and it was very much like the conversation you would have with them at their booth at Gen Con, but virtual. significantly good because they had a Q&A and there were other creators there, and it's actually nice to have other folks in that conversation because they'll ask a question that you forgot about.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm interested to see how much hybridization we can do between the like forced online that we have now and the like kind of lightly forced in person that we used to have.
Yeah. I think if this is all managed right, especially with like the online convention pieces, with streaming and the other forms of multimedia that we have, like TikTok and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think all of this can absolutely like continue to grow, but I think it would just take change, and it would take a lot of looking at things a different way and seeing it for the opportunity that it is, rather than going like sticking to one model that's always been the model. Like it just means diversifying your income, I guess, a bit. Both like as a streamer or like a publisher or a designer. Like what Amari is doing is also just so unique. I think he's like there aren't as many game designers. I know there's like Idol Michael, Amari, Ian Zhang does some. There are like some game designers that do it, but like Amari just has like a completely different feel and theater and an atmosphere to his that is more in common with what we see among the newer content creators. I think it's just very different. It's a very different energy than any of the content that's kind of hit before. That you see more regularly, rather than just kind of dismissing it as like, oh, that's just that one person's style. It's like more generational style with this new generation of creators. So I'm really glad for that. I think that people should absolutely not sleep on Twitch, because I think it's going to come in handy, especially for things like when Gen can't and things like that pop up. I think there's a lot that we can do to make space for people who can't afford to go to conventions or who can't travel for the foreseeable future. I think we'll need to continue to care for people in our community that don't have the same access to resources to manage those things. So I hope that is the thing that happens.
No, I'm really glad that y'all are doing that and like making experiences accessible to a lot of people. I think the industry at large is kind of vulnerable to creating and sustaining FOMO for a lot of folks. And that is unfortunate. So I'm glad that there's efforts being put in place to make these experiences accessible in their own way to people who can't necessarily get those experiences otherwise.
Yeah. And I think there's so many publishers that just haven't been given the credit that I think is due to them for managing their online spaces the ways that they have, whether that's like through Discord or Twitch or even just like Twitter or something like that. Because they've been, for me, who has I've only been to like 2 or 3 conventions, like 3 conventions before the world shut down, and they all happened right kind of back to back. So I was fortunate to find work and go. But beforehand, it felt like that was the only way that I was ever going to experience the world of board games in that capacity.
Which is funny to me because my sense of time is so like aggressively skewed that I'm like, what? Monique's been around forever. Like I'm like, yeah, just like I think that basically my brain has so aggressively split my like pre-pandemic stuff and like during pandemic stuff that all of that stuff is just like 1 year a long time ago is like pre-pandemic. So I'm just like, yeah, no, the last 5 years that we've been doing all this at home stuff, Monique's just been out here crushing it. I'm like, it has been 5 years. And I'm like, right? I don't perceive time in that way anymore, which is unfortunate. It's its own problem, but
I mean, it's mostly been pretty on my mind because I'm coming up on my year of having been on Twitch.
Oh, nice.
Like in some capacity. And so I'm also thinking like, it's been a year, we've been home, so like what is the next year look like, and what do I want? I like those questions. They're fun, but also just like, where are we headed? Where do you go? Where'd you go in Cotton Eye Joe?
Mm-hmm. I found the other day that my a coworker of mine was a server at Texas Roadhouse, and as a result has line danced to Cotton Eye Joe on more than one occasion.
I lived in Oregon, so that was like the anthem of all school dances in the 90s.
That's fair.
Because I don't think like Nirvana probably wasn't like a real big one. It was like Ace of Base and Cotton Eye Joe were played at the school dances. It's a lot less like Pearl Jam.
Mm-hmm. The 90s.
The 90s.
All right.
And the Cranberries.
Let's talk future though. So
sure.
What are 3 games that you really want to stream in the future?
Oh God. Brew okay. And anything like it. Nothing's really stopping me except for just like getting people like, hey, do you want to play Brew? Just because like it's so Ghibli looking. Like I think I just can't get over that aspect of it.
Have you played Ni no Kuni?
I played the video game. I played that actually streaming. Last year.
Have you played the sequel, Revenant Kingdom?
That was the one I played with Ni no Kuni too.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the one I played. I tried to play Ni no Kuni 1 because I bought it for the PlayStation 3. Then my housemate moved out, and she took the PlayStation 3. That was hers with her. Yeah. I'm not mad about that. I'm just like, oh.
I bought this game and I can't play it. Yeah.
Me softly, Jess. I'm not mad about the PlayStation 3. I have my own. Everything's fine. I just, you say something and you're like, oh, that sounds odd. And you're like,
Oh, yeah, like that's half the things I say. I'm like, did that come out right? And then chat's like phrasing or something. I'm like, hey, I guess that didn't come out right.
Blessing. Alright, so Brew.
So Brew, I do want to, I'm desperate to see if I can get Tidal Blades to fit in this area. Mm-hmm. I don't know if like my setup would be able to cover anything other than like, here, it's this big, here, can you see it?
Yeah, Tidal Blades is just out of view in my camera. I think it's a little higher up. I'm also looking forward to playing that at some point.
Yeah, I'm just, oh god, I'm dying to play it. Like yeah, it just looks so good. Mm-hmm. So there's that one. I really want to play Sherlock. Like, dream goals would be like to play all the Sherlock Holmes consulting detective games on the stream, because I was recently gifted the original 1981 version of Sherlock Holmes consulting detective, and like no one ever played it. Like, it's perfect, and someone found it at a
extremely fresh. Oh, nice.
And it like, yeah.
That happened to me once. I got my Grail game at I was at a convention, and there's some person who goes to that convention every year, and they just bring a bunch of games from a warehouse. I feel like they used to like have a game store, and it just has this big bunch of out of print games. And on a shelf, buried under a bunch of stuff, was a new in shrink copy of the Carcassonne Catapult expansion.
Awesome.
That game is so good. It is so universally loved that upon reacquiring the Carcassonne license, Z-Man refused to reprint it, saying, and I'm paraphrasing, why would we reprint something that is so universally loved? Yep, it's not because it sucks or anything. It's not because it sucks really bad.
Really?
Oh, it's terrible.
You had me going, Eric! No!
It's such a bad expansion.
I was like, why would they... Wow, that's an interesting decision. Oh my god.
I love it so much. Have you ever played Carcassonne and thought, this doesn't have enough dexterity game components for me?
Every time I've played Carcassonne, I'm like, there's just got to be more than this.
There's got to be more dexterity game components specifically. Yeah, so it has a little catapult, and you like flip little components for various effects. It is bad. So like, I think the Z-Man version, it's still the new Z-Man stuff still numbers the expansions. And so they have all the expansions. They have 1, they've got 2, they've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, and 10. All the expansions. And you're like, wait. And they're like, nope, that's all of them.
Did you skip a number? No number.
Nope, nothing, nothing.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's deeply cursed. It's like if someone added a hidden traitor expansion to Carcassonne. You're like you have to assume that they were just drinking heavily, and someone was like, catapult. That's what we're doing.
Hang on. Hear me out.
Oh, it's so bad, but I love it.
Hold my meeple. Watch this.
Throw my meeples. Oh man, yeah. Okay. So, other than Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, though, let's say someone comes to you and says, "Hi, I'm Moneybags. I'm bankrolling your channel. My only dream is that you pick the 3 games that you have always wanted to stream. Like, your dream 3 games to stream. Money's no object. You can get the equipment that you want. What would you pick?"
Could I get guests?
Huh?
Could I get guests?
Sure, why not?
Okay, awesome. I would 100% want to play a game with Tom Holland where he had to explain something.
It's like Aloha Earth.
Yeah, that would work.
Mm-hmm.
That would be great.
That would be fun.
Yeah. No, I think Tom Holland would be fantastic at that. Like, it's just, I think he'd probably just like, I wouldn't be the only person that was saying too much on the stream, which would be a huge boon for me. Like, I think he has a bit of that like verbal processing like thing that goes on there. So that would be nice. I think that would be a lot of fun. Just Tom Holland seems like a really good kid. So yeah, Aloha Earth would be perfect. I think I would want to. I'm going to assume I can't resurrect people.
Probably
so
not. It's a little expensive.
Yeah, because initially I was thinking, I'm like also looking at games that are right next to me. So I'm like, if it's Moneybags, then I'm just going to pick like celebrities or something. I think it would be fun to play. Let's see. Oh God, I don't know. Besides Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, I think I'd want to play that with like a bunch of Sherlock Holmes actors.
Right, I was gonna say that seems like the like next step is you're like, yeah, we get all of the Sherlocks, we make them fight.
Yeah. So I'd have like Johnny Lee Miller, Robert Downey Jr., and Benedict Cumberbatch, and who else has played Sherlock? Henry Cavill, and who else has played Sherlock recently?
I'm still thinking of those 2 ladies from Miss Sherlock that I have. It's on my HBO Max or HBO Max list. I just haven't gotten around to watching it yet. Who else has played Sherlock recently? Not sure.
Yeah, I really like games. Well, also like it's been me trapped, and so I miss listening to people. I miss listening to people reasoning out things or debating things or just kind of not arguing because that feels like too aggressive. But I do like people going, no, hear me out. Like, I love that. So I think I'm just picking people I just want to listen to go back and forth debate things. But they don't have to be like shown up as their own individual Sherlock characters.
Mm-hmm.
Like Johnny Lee Miller Sherlock would have to argue with Benedict Cumberbatch's Sherlock, which would have to argue with Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock, and they'd all just kind of together logically.
That's reasonable.
So yeah, those are the 2 I could think of at least right now. There's like more people I'd absolutely love to like listen to. Oh, there's like a woman on TikTok who's her name goes by the Black Forager, and I can't remember her real name. And then there's Adria from Black Girl in a Big Dress on YouTube, and I would absolutely want to play a game with both of them for sure.
That's fair.
Oh, maybe like Wingspan or Obsession. That would be fun. I think I'd want to play Obsession with both of them. That's the one where it's like a Regency estate game. Yeah. I have not played that, and it's like right up my alley, so I'm desperate to play it. I'm going to get it for myself at some point, but I would love to stream that game, and then I would love to play with those two women because I think they're amazing.
That sounds great. Well, I hope it happens.
I know. I should reach out to them. She's like, "Hi, you don't know me, but do you want to play a Regency board game with me?"
Worst they could say is no.
Right?
Right?
Totally.
That's the dream. All right. Well, that's actually all the questions that I've got. So, last question I always ask is, where can people find you online?
I am Game Freak Geek on Twitter and Game Freak Geek Girl on Twitch and Instagram and TikTok.
Excellent. Well, yeah, like I said, Monique, thanks so much for popping on the show. It's been a pleasure having you. And
Thank you.
Look forward to when we can actually play games in person again.
Heck yes. That would be dope. I like your brain, so I would love to play games with you.
Thank you. Likewise. I'm excited. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us. I'll talk to you soon.
Well, that's all the time we have for you today, but thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Late Night Table Talk.